Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you to everybody for joining, for taking the time out. I'm going to waffle for a little while. I'm going to talk about all my different slides and stuff. So feel free to have your questions ready. So we're going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So please do have your questions ready. Again, thank you to Katarina and the team at FLA for having me along. So as you know, as you can see on the screen, I'm Jay. So I'm one of the co-founders from a company called Imagen Insights. And our mission at Imagen Insights is to help Gen Z to shape their future. I mean, the best way for them to do that is with brands, because brands are shaping countries and culture like governments only wished they could do. So what we do is we enable agencies and brands to crowdsource qualitative or quantitative insights from our communities. We have a community of over 21,000 Gen Z in over 111 countries. Extremely diverse. So our community is 60% female, 35% Black, 25% Asian, 20% from a low-income background, 20% from the LGBT community, and 10% registered as disabled. So when we say we are diverse, we truly, truly are. And the main countries we're in are the US, UK, Spain, Germany, France, all across the rest of EMEA and all across Latin America. So we are truly, truly global. And one of the big reasons why brands love to come work with us is simply for the fact that we can crowdsource this beautiful, rich insight, specifically qualitative insight from our community within 72 hours. So we are just quicker than everybody else, which is great. Some of the different things that we can do, everything from brand conception to ideation to proof of concept to testing products, whatever it may be, we built technology that means we can get that really rich qualitative insight really quickly and make sure it's really in depth for you guys. From a community perspective, we do not plug into panel aggregators. So we are not your traditional market research platform that just plugs into aggregators. We have our own community housed on our own platform, and we are the ones that get to engage with them. So it's not something that plugs into somebody else. We have our own entire community, so we can get insight that most people can't get. Clients, obviously, you can see the screen there. You can see a whole bunch of lovely people on the screen, which are really, really cool. I'm not going to go through because it sounds kind of arrogant going through those, but they're wonderful human beings all the same. So that's enough about us, because you're like, Jay, that sounds great. I didn't really come to hear about Imagen Insights. I came to hear your presentation. This is wonderful. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about. So firstly, who the heck are Gen Z? So short story, they are aged between 8 to 26 years old. Depends who you talk to. In America, they skew a little bit higher. People say in Australia, they skew a little bit lower, but really this is where you're looking at. 8 to 26 years old. Their spending power is $4.4 trillion. That's what it's going to be raising to by 2030, which is a massive amount of money. So some common characteristics across all Gen Z is that they are activists. So if you look at anything that's happened over the last few years, whether it's regards to Black Lives Matter or the fight for gender equality or gender pay gap or whatever it may be, it's normally Gen Z leading the charge. They're normally the ones at the front making the most noise. The second thing is that they are co-creators. So with millennials like myself, I want to be on a podcast. Talk to me. I'm important. Let me tell you how amazing I am. But with Gen Z, they just want to create cool things with cool people. And you can see this in TikTok. So the reason why TikTok has done really well is because of one of their duet features, which it means I get to create with you. You've created something really cool. I want to add value to it. I can then duet with you and create with you. So Gen Z are co-creators. And the last and most obvious one, they're digital natives. They grew up in a digital world unlike any other generation. So they truly know how to use it in an amazing and beautiful way. Before I go into, so I'm going to actually go and start talking a little bit about, okay, Gen Z from a holistic perspective, using a report that we've actually done. And I thought the best thing for me to do first is actually to add instant value to you guys. So I'm going to tell you 3 ways to engage Gen Z and to make sure they are listening to you and engaging with you in a great way. And the first way you can actually engage with Gen Z really, really well is through being transparent. So as a brand, as an agency, whatever it may be, transparency is key. Make your values, make who you are as an agency or as a brand something you are proud of. And also be honest about your shortcomings. The interesting thing is with most brands, historically, we would like to hide the things that we're not good at because we are embarrassed about them. But with Gen Z, they want to know when you make mistakes. They want to know when you've made a mistake, but you're correcting it. That's what they care about. And I've got some quotes here directly from our community. I love this one at the bottom. I love behind the scenes content at a brand's warehouse, showing their process and most importantly, how they wish to improve it. So it's not just going, hey guys, look how amazing we are, look at the amazing things we're doing. It's saying, hey, this is what we're doing, but this is where we want to get to. These are the changes that we want to make to get to where we can be, which is really, really cool. And a prime example of this is Tala. So Tala, as some of you may know, are a British athleisure brand. Really, really great brand led by Grace Beverly, phenomenal brand. And I love one of the quotes here down at the bottom from one of our Gen Z community who were on Twitter. Attempting to buy anything on the Tala website is literally an extreme sport when there's a restock. Tala have such great engagement with their community, but one of the main reasons why they have this is because of how transparent they are. The founder talks regularly about things that she's interested in, things that are important to her, about the making of the brand, and so on and so on. So it's really, really interesting, powerful stuff. So the first key point that you need to take away if you hear nothing else that I say today is be transparent with Gen Z. The second thing is conversation. So historically as brands, we normally get a megaphone and we shout towards our people that are on our social media. We're normally saying, this is what we're doing. This is what we're good at. This is why we are important. But Gen Z actually want to talk to you. Obviously, you can use amazing platforms like Imagen Insights if you wanted to do this, but you can do this yourselves. Via your social media, you can engage in a conversation with Gen Z. I'm not just talking about having a megaphone and telling everybody what you're doing. You can use your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, whatever it may be, to engage in conversation with them, whether it's via the DMs or on dark social, or whether this is actually live on the stream so everybody can see, being like, hey, we saw you comment on this. We'd love to hear your opinion about it. Engaging in conversation with them. That's what they love to see from brands. Couple of quotes here. I want my favorite brands to engage with me about stuff that I care about. And I love the second one. Historically, it's always been a one-way conversation from a brand to a consumer, but social media changed that 9 years ago. Guys, it was a long time ago that social media came around. And for some reason, we still pretend and act like social media is some new idea and we don't really know how to engage with it. The best way to engage with it is a two-way dialogue, a two-way conversation. Because if every conversation was like this, me just talking at you and not listening back, it would suck. But the great thing is, if you have your questions at the end, I'll be able to answer some of those, which is really, really cool. Good example of this, of conversation, is Crosstown Donuts. So Crosstown Donuts are a great brand that I really love. I actually don't like donuts, but I love buying them for people. So they're a great brand to buy for people. But the reason why Crosstown do really, really well is their engagement with their community via their social media, the conversations they have. And I love this quote from one of our community on Twitter. Have you ever had Crosstown Donuts? Bruv, devouring them is a spiritual transforming experience. And I love that because Crosstown actually replied to that tweet and engaged with them around that, which is really, really cool. First point is transparency. Second point is conversation. And the third point is bravery. And I'm not talking in that, let's be brave. I'm talking about an actual bravery. Brands taking risks. And I'm not talking about taking wild, uncalculated risks. You can take calculated risks by doing your research. Again, it doesn't have to be with us. Take these risks yourself. And when I'm talking about bravery, two prime examples from our community when we're discussing bravery is one here at the top where it says, I was listening to the president of K-Swiss talk honestly about their brand on Clubhouse. Not many brands would take that risk on a new platform. And this is the reason that quote actually came from when Clubhouse was a brand new platform and the president of K-Swiss went on there and was just honest about K-Swiss as a brand, the struggles that they've had and what they truly care about. And from a bravery perspective, one of the things we hear from our community all the time is when a brand gets behind a cause, they need to not only get behind the cause, they need to also show how they're going to support that cause going forward. Prime example of this is Black Lives Matter. So as you guys can remember, when Black Lives Matter was a massive media issue and everybody was talking about it, all brands had some kind of quote that they were saying about how important Black lives were to them and so on and so on. But how much conversation have you seen around Black Lives Matter since then, or just around Black people since then? A lot of the conversation from brands has died out. And when I'm speaking about bravery, a lot of this is saying, hey, we're going to stick to the things that are important to us. So whether that's LGBT rights or whether that's Black Lives Matter or whatever the cause is you're getting around, get behind that and stay with that for the long run. Don't make that something you're doing for a short period of time. Say, we're going to be doing this for the next 10, 15 years, and here's our strategy over the next few years. Here's what we're planning on doing in the next year. Here's what we're planning to do in the next 3 years. Here's what we're planning to do in the next 10 years. So Gen Z can see that transition of you being brave, being honest, and changing with. And another side of bravery is very much just saying, hey, we messed up, we hold up our hands, and We want to be honest around it. A great example, transparency is in the wrong place. Great example of bravery, is the Receipts podcast. So Spotify actually got behind the Receipts podcast and really, really pushed them out. This is back in 2019 or 2020, I want to say, where the Receipts podcast wasn't as big as it is now. And Spotify really said, hey, you know what? We believe in this podcast. We believe in these women. We're going to get behind them and really, really push this out so people can see it. And you really saw that the way the Receipts podcast has exploded. Spotify didn't just say this with their actions, they also did this from a financial perspective, which is great. So 3 great ways that you can engage with Gen Z is firstly by being transparent. The second one is by having conversation with them. And the third one is about being brave, which is great. So those 3 takeaways, if you listen to nothing else I say, write those down, take those away, and think about those more. So at the beginning of the year, we did our brutally honest Gen Z report. So this is a report that we do once a year, and it kind of just forecasts what's coming up for the year. So we released it on the 5th of January. So it's a 360-day forecast about what we predict to come up. So we did research with our Gen Z community, and we asked them a whole bunch of questions around a series of topics. So I'm actually going to go through some of those topics now. So their general outlook for the year, their biggest concerns for the year pretty much coming up was money and finances, as you can guess. It's a concern for all of us, right? But money and finances was number 1, education was number 2. But most interestingly, was that loneliness was 3% right at the bottom. I'm gonna be honest, I thought that was gonna be much higher than it currently is, but for them, loneliness is right down there. And you can see COVID, 12%. Nobody's even worried that much about COVID anymore. But with all that being said, 68% of our Gen Z community said that they are optimistic for the year ahead. It's a beautiful thing to see. 32% said that they weren't. I had to do my maths, and I was like, was it 32%? Yeah, definitely was 32%. Geez, public math, we don't like that. But 68% said they're excited for the year ahead. 41% are already living in a big city, and 29% don't have an aspirations to buy a property. I'm sorry, property industry, 30% of our community said they don't really care about buying a house. There's an interesting fact about pets that I'm gonna show you guys later. But the bottom right-hand corner gives you a nice fact. Although generally optimistic for the year ahead, Gen Z are most concerned about their finances, obviously, as you can see. In addition, while there is much talk of this generation's concern for climate change, in the media, you see there's a lot of concern around Gen Z for climate change. Actually, and realistically, climate change isn't that high on their agenda. As you can see, only 5% of them saying that's important to them. Their use of social media. As you can imagine, Gen Z use social media a lot, which is probably just a given. So when we were looking at the data, we were trying to understand how do they actually get information about the world. And the interesting one I'd love to show you on the right-hand side is right at the bottom is 0% of our Gen Z community say that they trust brands. I know, guys, it sucks. It wasn't what I expected either, but 0% of our Gen Z community globally, so this is a global trend, said that they trusted brands. And 45% said that they trusted experts, which is probably the most interesting. The one that I like as well is that friends and family is still super high up there. And low down as well, social media, expected, news channels, and media is exactly the same. So the ones that they're really trusting are experts and scientists. This is probably skewed simply for the fact of COVID, because obviously we've been listening to a lot of scientists, but from an expert's perspective, that is super interesting to them. 52% on the left-hand side will watch the news and have more of an interest in current affairs than previous years. This year for them is all about watching the news and understanding, but still they're going to be leaving experts above everybody else. You can see on the left-hand side there, 68% reported that they don't feel they are represented accurately in the media. And guys, you've heard this a billion times before. That's probably not changed in a long time. Finances and spending. So more than half will turn to family and friends for money advice, while only 4% will ask banks. You're kind of seeing a trend here, guys. 0% said that they trusted brands, and only 4% said they're going to go for money advice to a bank. The people that have your money. One of the reasons why when we deep dive on this with our community, one of the main reasons why they said they don't trust banks is simply for the fact that they've seen the problems that banks have caused over the years with regards to the property crash in 2008 and so on and so on. They've seen the detrimental effects that's had to millennials and older generations, and one of the main reasons why they don't trust banks. You can see some great statistics on the screen there. I will pull out the one in the middle. 62% will be signed up to more than 3 subscription services in 2022. So subscriptions are something that's super key for them. They're so used to it. It's casual for them. So if you are a subscription platform or a subscription company, or you're working with one, this is really important, guys. They care about you. They want to engage with you. They want subscriptions. So this is a great time to engage them around that. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is 50% don't feel confident using buy now, pay later schemes. And one of the interesting things is actually they mentioned by name some of the platforms that they actually avoid. I won't mention those on here because that's not very nice to do that. Again, following on from finances and spending, what are they planning to spend money on? As you could probably guess, travel and holidays. Why travel and holidays? Because we've all been stuck in our homes, as I am right now. 34% are saying that they are very interested in spending money on travel and holidays, followed quickly by experiences and events. These are the things that are important to Gen Z. They care about going out and spending their money, which is great for brands because you can be a part of this $4.4 trillion spending power. You can be involved in this. And I love this quote right at the bottom. Experiences are what makes up your life. And the pandemic showed that sharing and experiences with others is what makes people happy. That's a direct quote from one of our community. They want to be outside. They want to be experiencing with friends and family, and they want to be living that life. And the bottom, sorry for anybody on here that works for an automotive or car company, only 3% of our community plan on spending on automotives or cars, which sucks. Sex and relationships. Ooh, the juicy stuff. This is what everybody's here for. So, love this quote at the top. I would like for sex education to be implemented in all schools and not for it to be a taboo subject anymore, because kids should be educated from an appropriate age. Sex education is important to this demographic. They believe that everybody should understand what sex education is from a young age. And my favorite quote from probably this entire presentation is the middle one. 80% of our community said that they want to own pets. And actually, that's a higher percentage of the ones that plan on having children in the future, have aspirations to get married in the future, and only 66% plan to have children later in life. 80% want a pet, only 66% actually want to have children later in life, which is super interesting. And then the last percentage I'm going to mention is a 55% would rather use social media to seek out a dating partner than Tinder or Bumble, that's how you can tell I use dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, so on and so on. For them, social media is a much more natural and not natural is probably not the best term. Social media is much more, I can't think of the phrase, but social media is a better way for them to engage and find a potential partner than actual dating apps themselves, which is really interesting. A couple of quotes here. This top one on the left-hand side relates to exactly what I was just saying a second ago. I'm not a fan of dating apps. I only know when I get on with someone if I meet them in real life. I don't have the capacity to deal with awkward first dates. And if I haven't met them in person, that's more likely. They're saying, hey, I don't want to go through a dating app because if I meet you in IRL and we haven't met previously, it's going to be awkward. Ideally, I would like to meet a partner in a more organic way, like through social media, which blows my mind. The fact that they just said, ideally, I would like to meet a partner in a more organic way. Like the fact that they find social media organic just blows my mind, because to me, I'm like, social media is not organic in any way, shape, or form. But to Gen Z, social media is an organic way of meeting a partner. I feel like dating apps are more catered towards hookup culture, not for finding a partner. Such a great point there. And the last prediction on the right-hand side, in a post-pandemic world where we expect to see a quest and strive for happiness in Gen Z, they will park longer-term life goals and become a generation that lives for the moment. Expect less marriages, less Gen Z becoming parents, and fewer properties purchased, and more effort focused on holistic living style. Expect Gen Z to also make sure they are not neglecting their family, in particular, elderly people. And one of the reasons why Gen Z cares so much about elderly people is because they've actually been locked up with a lot of them. Locked up, that sounds crazy. But they're actually, during the pandemic, they spent a lot more time with their elderly family members. So they've begun to actually care for them more. And we had a percentage, 28% of our community said that they were looking to travel. They were excited to travel with elderly grandparents over the next few years, which is really, really cool. The last thing to mention, the past year has really highlighted how finite time is, and Gen Z will value family time more than ever before. So what is this year? I love this. This year is the year of reframing. I'm just going to read straight from the screen because my team did a great job putting all this together. Based on our report, our prediction is that 2022, I'm struggling with words today, what is going on, will be the year of reframing for Gen Z. They, like everyone else, have been living through the pandemic, a period of uncertainty and change. And we're seeing this impact across all topics, including work, relationships, finance, and their general outlook. Although optimistic and hopeful for opportunities, Gen Z want to consider things carefully moving forward. weighing up their priorities while reframing their perspectives and reevaluating what they want from life. They want to be better considered by society, something we believe will only ever evolve over the year ahead. Absolutely love it. And there we go. That's me done.
Jay, that was so insightful. And yeah, so many great points there that I want to dive deeper in. And I'm sure lots of people have questions about everything that you mentioned. So guys, now it's time for questions. So feel free to type them in the chat and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. For now, we'll start the questions that have been submitted before and we can go through them. So the question number one I want to ask is, can a person from another generation Y or X, market to a Gen Z person, or it is an easier way if Gen Z markets to a Gen Z?
Yeah, I think great question. Firstly, whoever asked that, yes, they can. Short answer, yes, you can market to Gen Z, but you need to do your research. I just think from any demo, whether you're marketing even to millennials, I would say just do your research. I think historically the problem is, as human beings, we naturally assume that we know what we're doing at all times, and I think the problem is with this demographic that they want to be heard. And I think the best way to market to them is ask them what they would like to see, and then just to do that. So whether that's you hiring a Gen Z person or outsourcing it to an agency or doing the research yourself, the best thing to do is ask them what they want to see from you and then just do that instead of then you just reduce all the guesswork and mitigate all of the risk.
Brilliant. That's a great question. There are a couple of actually technical questions they asked. First of all, whether people can find this report. If it's downloadable?
Yes, it is. You head to our website, you'll see a link on imageninsights.com, and the Brutally Honest Gen Z report is like one of the top links on the page. You just click that, input your details, and one of our team will send it out to you.
Perfect. And Vero is asking, are these trends for UK or global trends?
So these are global trends.
That's good. Great. Well, next question comes from Max on the call today. What was the research sample size? And is detailed report is available?
Yeah, so the detailed report is available. I want to say the sample size was 250, I think, maybe 500. I can't actually remember. But it's all in the report. So when you receive the report, you'll see it in there.
Artem is asking, what about brand tone of voice? So tone of voice of a brand, is it different for Gen Z?
I think, yeah, so this goes back to the 3 points I made at the start, and one of them is the conversation piece. And I think the brands, and we see some brands do this really, really well, where it's kind of, they use social media more as a conversational tool and a way of engaging with not just Gen Z, with all demographics. I think all demographics want to be able to have conversations with brands. And I think your brand tone of voice these days is less a foghorn, we're telling you what's going on in our world, and more of a, hey, we want to engage with you in the conversation, learn more about you, and actually treat you as you are, as a part of a community instead of just a consumer for us.
Brilliant, thank you. And Florencia is asking, how can we apply this for personal brands?
Ooh, good question. You want to build a community around your brand, and the brands that people love the most are the ones where, specifically personal brands, are ones where people are actually, they treat their consumers like a community, and they're having that conversation, they're engaging with them, they're being transparent, they're being brave, they're being honest, they're doing all of those things, but from a perspective of being like, hey, this is my personal brand. And I definitely think you can do all of those three things, whether it's PepsiCo or whether it's your personal brand.
Wonderful. And we have more questions. Where do influencers fall into? Are they social media or are they experts? From their charts of who people trust and experts in social media and all of that?
It's a good question. I think from the research we did a great piece of work for, was it Amazon Prime Video? I think it was for Prime Video. We did a great piece of work for Prime Video, and the influencers are considered experts. But the thing is with influencers, you have to be really careful, as in, there needs to be a track record of them being experts, if that makes sense. If they became an expert last week, so it's like, say, for example, like I understand a lot about Gen Z and about marketing, about market research, but if you ask me about, I don't know, a war on I may not be the most qualified person to talk about that. So suddenly, if a week after, so something happens in the world and I suddenly start talking about it, so I may be a trusted voice on one subject, but I may not be a trusted voice on another. And I think you just have to be careful with influencers. If they have a track record around a certain topic and you're going to engage them on that, then they are trusted. But if they're just kind of like flip-flopping from topic to topic, Gen Z can see straight through that. So it's definitely, you just have to, the best thing to do is just ask Gen Z what influences they'd want to engage with around that. But I definitely think you just have to just be mindful that there's nuance around all of it for sure.
TikTok and museums. How would you market museums to Gen Z while the museum is more academically present?
So it's actually, if you go on my TikTok, I've got like 78 followers, whatever. I'm a big deal. I'm an influencer. If you go onto my TikTok, there is, I actually put up a TikTok of my son and I visiting the National Portrait Gallery to go see the Kane Day Wiley exhibit. And I got a lot of DMs around that from Gen Z, just being like, yo, this is sick. Like, where's the exhibit? Blah, 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 blah. They are interested in these things because the thing is they want to be educated like the rest of us. And I think that museums are of interest. It's just how you package the content. Because you can actually make museums look really, really cool. There's loads of behind the scenes content you can do. There's loads of, you can interview people as they're walking in and out of the museum, their experience, all those kind of things. You can make it, you can almost quote unquote, make the museum come alive. And I think there's actually loads of beautiful ways that I could think of that you can actually do it, but definitely showing the behind the scenes of people visiting and asking them questions like, what was your favorite exhibit? And so on and so on. That would definitely bring it to live in a great way. And then and you can overlay on top of that, some great, because basically the music's trending at different times, and you can overlay that with music that's super engaging, and we'll get that content out there for you. Also as well on TikTok, if you keep your videos, just a little hack, if you keep your videos to like 7 seconds long, which is obviously harder for interviews, but for 7 seconds long, the algorithm will kick it to the top. So the right song and 7 seconds long, and you're going to be doing better than everyone else. But I didn't tell you that. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant. And I love how you bring back all the insights that you shared about transparency and, again, communicating and engaging with the audience. I think, like applies to any industry, any platform, having those conversations and behind the scenes and creating an experience for people. That's always, and even though you said it for Gen Z, I would say I prefer that content as well. And I'm not a Gen Z, but I think we're all moving towards that direction when we're a bit bored of brands shouting at us, and we want a bit more interaction and a bit more truthfulness and behind the scenes. So that is fantastic. We had one more difficult question. Actually, someone asked, let me find this. So Bagdan is asking, do you have any tips for marketing to Gen Z in more industrial branches, such as construction or carpentry?
Yes. So Bagdan, go onto Gucci's TikTok. And on Gucci's TikTok, you will see behind the scenes content of them creating Gucci bags. And then look at the views and look at the comments. It's mad. These guys care so much about this stuff. It's wild. So behind the scenes content is cool anyway, because it's the kind of stuff that you want to know about. But just a lot of time we couldn't know because brands are like, no, we don't want to tell you how. But now you can actually do that. So I think you could actually, there's loads of like even, is it ASMR? Like the noise, like where people like, you hear like people like making sounds of things, and then like people just listen to videos of people making sounds. Industrial like factories or whatever, you could do that really, really well. And that stuff would blow up really, really well on TikTok, because it's kind of, it's a unique way of doing ASMR. Using industrial type things. I definitely think behind the scenes content at a warehouse or any kind of industrial thing is cool if you make it. If you use the current songs and then you're doing it in a warehouse where you are, I don't know, I would need to know what your industry is. But if you're doing that and just not making it cool, so that sounds so freaking cliche, but you are making the content relatable. So you're making it going, hey, look, this is behind the scenes content of us making X product. We make planes, and this is us putting a plane together. That kind of stuff does really, really well. I saw a video the other day. I literally watched like a 30-second video, and this guy just chopping up wood. I was just there watching this guy. Obviously, he was like insanely good looking. So it's like, there's that as well. But he was just chopping up wood. And then he started chopping up wood topless. And I was like, all right, I'm out. But the initial part was really, really cool of him just chopping up wood. And I was like, I didn't realize you had to chop the wood in a specific place and blah, blah, blah. But it's cool. It was cool to find out. So if you can do that kind of stuff, not like topless videos, but I mean, as in like do that kind of stuff with you showing behind the scenes, I think that would work.
I will add to that, the trend of behind the scenes and factories is nothing new. I think, I don't know if any of you remember I think 1980s or something, movie called Scazzi. It was really popular when I was an art student, and literally the whole movie is factories manufacturing things, factories, escalators. There is no narrative. It's literally like a looped videos of all things repeating and mesmerizing, and it like literally blew out of proportion because it was so popular. And so people love watching things being created, whether it's in a factory or chopping wood, which is also sounds like quite mesmerizing. So yeah, I love your examples, how even a construction and carpentry industry can definitely start trending on TikTok. What about Marketing to Gen Z, a platform dedicated to building a community dedicated to career networking opportunities, dedicated to students and grads of their generation? So Leap Grad, would you like to expand on your question? I think I got a bit lost on.
Yeah, sure. Am I able to speak or?
Yeah, go on.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Justin. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of LeapGrad. Awesome presentation, by the way. On behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for the time. So yeah, I just want to know about like any specific tactics you would recommend for marketing towards like Gen Z students and graduates, a platform that's dedicated to their career opportunities, or even the ability to network with each other as well.
Yeah, good question, bro. So actually, you're doing not too, because we're targeting them with opportunities to get paid to work with brands, so it's probably not too dissimilar. I know I keep banging on about the behind the scenes stuff, but I think with you guys, it's probably more of a the value that you can add. So what I would do if I was you guys, and I know everybody's going to start messaging, being like, what about in this industry? What about that industry? We could do this for literally weeks. But for you guys specifically, I think it would be something great around the like CV tips, but actually from Gen Z. So Gen Z just giving CV tips, or Gen Z talking about not just on TikTok, but on YouTube, on Instagram, whatever. It's stuff that instantly adds value to them. So basically what you want to do is you want to be LeapGrad, you want to be the people that are seen as a trusted source, giving free information to these people that will instantly add value to their lives. And I think if you can do that, just do that part really, really well, you'll build a great audience, which will in turn then lead people to your business. You don't want it to be like because what a lot of brands do is, a lot of companies do is, we do this, look how amazing we are, we do this, come and look at our website. And Gen Z is just like, I don't give a shit. Sorry, forgive my language. But if you can be like, I'm not saying that's what you guys are doing, so I have no idea what your social media game is. But if you're doing, hey, we add value day in, day out. And the biggest thing is, bro, stay consistent. If you start a TikTok or you start an Instagram, whatever, don't start and then stop after 2 weeks, or like do intermittent posts. Prepare yourself for a month. You're okay, we've got content to go for a month. And then each month, just renew that content. So you're just posting out content that was prepared from before. So take your time to develop all this stuff, get it all internally, set out a content strategy, start posting that out, and then you'll have the content for next month. But the biggest thing you can do outside of all of that, and for everybody that's asking questions about different industry stuff, ask Gen Z. Because I'm great, but I'm 31, guys. I'm 32 in June. You know what I mean? I'm an old man in the game. I have a lot of insight around these guys, but the best thing you can do is actually ask them, and ask them, what do you want to see from us? We're LeapGrad. This is what we're doing. This is our mission. What would you want to see? Because I'm sure they'll come up with some similar things that I have, but they'll come up with things that you don't expect as well. And obviously you can use platforms like ours to do that, but you can actually do that directly yourself. You don't need organizations always to help with that.
And there are lots of questions about particular industries, so we'll try not to get in every single industry, because I think, as you rightly said, ask Gen Z what they want. And actually lots of people actually highlighted that they are Gen Z on this post, so that's great to hear. And some people saying that they somewhere in between and identify themselves as one category or another, which I totally agree with. I don't think there are like really strict lines about whether you're Gen Z or not. And I hope I'll stay young until 90 years old and will really relate to whatever Gen Alpha, Beta, Gamma, whatever that will be when I'm 90. So that's good to hear. We have young spirits, no matter what ages. Age is just a number. There is a lovely question from Anouk. What are the biggest misconceptions made today in advertising that you can tell is meant for Gen Z but misses the mark?
The funniest one is when people just use a popular influencer and think it's going to bang. I find that hilarious. They're like, oh my days, she killed it for this brand, she's going to kill it for our brand as well. And that doesn't always work. And I love it when brands do it, because they're like, we're partnered with blah. And then it just tanks. And they're like, we don't know why. And I'm like, did you do research? And like, no. I'm like, there's why. Because what will work for one, because what will happen is, and the maddest thing is, TikTok's not for everybody. And I know, guys, that's like sacrilege, the fact that I said that. TikTok isn't for everybody. Being on TikTok might not be for your brand. And you have to work out what works for your brand, because you might say, actually, you know what? Instagram and Twitter Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit is where we can engage best with Gen Z. And for one other brand, it might just be TikTok. And I think you have to work out what works best for your brand and do that. And the best way to do that is actually to do research with them, ask them. Again, you don't have to do it with us, but go to your current Gen Z community or any Gen Z that you know, in the comments, contact them on social media, not in a creepy way, don't be creeps, but just like contact them and engage with them and be like, hey, we want to know, we want to learn. And the craziest thing is a lot of Gen Z are open to do these things. Like all human beings are, we're open to help because you're coming from a place of humility, being like, hey, we want to figure this out. We want to figure out what works, what doesn't work. So the biggest thing that I see that goes wrong is where brands try and partner with an influencer because they've seen that influencer work for other brands. And the same influencer won't work for other brand. And then the second one is when people don't do their research. And that bloody pisses me off because I work in the research space.
This is a brilliant advice. Yeah, I think you're so right about working with the influencers. I think everyone gets fascinated by the concept without understanding why and what. Another example I would drop in this question, I forgot which car brand, but there was a very famous advert with emojis that was targeted for Gen Z that literally like no Gen Z ever cared about. But that's, I suppose, when it comes with our research, like you just pick what you see rather than understanding why a certain audience or certain person behaves a certain way. And that's where research is very, very handy, understanding actually the why, not the shape or form of it. Do Gen Z care at all or engage with B2B relationships and B2B marketing for those in jobs? Or is it viewed as boring and old people think?
No, I think one of the things that we've seen for our community is that they take their jobs very seriously. They take their careers very seriously and they do want to progress. So we have 50% of our team are Gen Z, and even within our community, obviously like 21,000 people globally. The great thing about us is we're kind of like the Illuminati. We're like infiltrating all these other, like all these brands and organizations don't realize that a lot of their people in their brands are actually in our company. So we get to hear really cool things from these massive brands and these massive agencies who actually, because their community, their employees are members of our community. They are interested in B2B stuff. I think they're interested in B2B stuff because they care about their careers and they want to progress. And I think being able to be the Gen Z that found something interesting from a B2B perspective is always powerful for them and is a great weapon for them to use. I think the challenge with historic B2B stuff is it just sucks, if we're honest. And I don't think this is just for Gen Z, but generally B2B engagement is just poor. Like when I see the way people like just spout rubbish on LinkedIn, and I post on LinkedIn every day, so I'm on there every single day. But I think the problem is historically, as brands, as B2B people, we often assume people want to hear what we have to say, but the truth is nobody actually does. Like you have to earn the right to be able to talk to people, and just posting every single day, this is what we do, these are our services, this is what we do, these are our services. Nobody cares. You're not adding value to their lives. And one of the things I found out when I post on LinkedIn, if you just go on any of my LinkedIn posts, also connect with me on LinkedIn, let's be friends. If I go into any of my LinkedIn posts, all I'm trying to do is add value. So I post something that adds value. It might not even link back to Gen Z. It might not link back to my business, but it'll add value. And then people go, actually, you know what? Jay's a decent human being. He wants to add value. I wonder what he does as a job. And then they go and look. And that's actually how we won Amazon Prime Video as a client. We just added value. They found out about us, and then yada, yada, yada. So yeah, short answer to your question is yes, they do care about B2B. We've just got to make it a little bit different and not be a foghorn about your business.
Wonderful answer, and definitely great comments about adding value. And Winker has another really interesting question. With Gen Z being mainly on video-based social media, what is the role and value of a website for these audiences? Or does the platform not really matter and it's more about interactivity and conversation? And I would actually expand this in general, websites as medium, whether we talk about publishers and news websites or a company website, where do they fall with Gen Z?
I think websites are super important because even for Gen Z, and this is for all demographics, websites is really a lot of people's first engagement with your brand. And within what video has done, both for millennials and for Gen Z, is shortened our attention span. So if I go onto your website and within the first few seconds, I can't understand what you do, that's a nightmare. Because if I'm going on, I'm like, okay, so you offer these services and these services and these, I can't be bothered. And I will just log off, and I'll probably just go onto Google and read the strap line that you've actually put on your Google and be like, okay, that's what they do. Gen Z will do the exact same because they're used to video content. So video content, because it's short in their attention span, websites are crucial, but you just need to make sure they can get what they need from the website super, super quickly. If you go onto our website, brutally honest, Gen Z Insights, straight away you read what we do and that we pay them. There you go. For them, easy to join the community, so on and so on. Is that my full answer? Yes. And then with regards to the role of news outlets and news websites, extremely important. But one thing we're finding is Gen Z are using Apple News more to engage with news than they are actually going onto the websites themselves. They do have their favorite, like New York Times or whatever it may be. They do have their go-tos. But a lot of that content also they're getting through podcasts. So Al Jazeera do a really great 2-minute update every day. And one of our Gen Z pointed that out to me. She's like, you can just jump on Al Jazeera's podcast and just hear a 2-minute update. And she's like, I'd rather do that than have to troll through hundreds of different pages of bollocks to try and figure out what's going on in wherever in the world. Yeah.
I love it. And very good points on time. I think both of them talk about how little time we have. So everyone wants things quick, digestible, and again, applies to everyone. My attention span is very short as well. So would love to very quickly understand what's going on. What am I supposed to read? What are things that? So that is a great one. Should a brand force itself to speak in language of Gen Z, even if it's not their native ones? And similar to that one, should the company in general extend their services or what they're doing to fit Gen Z? So if you're not targeting Gen Z now, should you even consider talking to Gen Z?
Yes, because your current consumers are going to die. That's just the honest truth. They're going to die one day. And if you don't engage the new consumers, your brand is going to die as well. I know it sounds super blunt, but it's true. And sometimes I feel like we forget that. We're like, no, let's just focus on I'm like, yeah, they will be dead. So yeah, Gen Z should be a consumer age group that you're engaging with. If you're going to be using social media to be talking, like if you're suddenly going to start saying things like, oh, it's peng and yada, yada, yada. If you're going to be using words that you're trying to engage with them using vocabulary that you think they will understand, make sure the person that's leading that social media is a person that's from the demographic, because then they will use it more naturally than somebody that isn't. And then also make that person almost the face of your social media. So like Tope, she's the face of you. Tope runs your social media account. So make Tope the face of your thing and so they can see, oh, she's Gen Z. That's why she's talking like that. And obviously this is different from massive brands, because like Doritos aren't going to have who's a client of ours. Doritos aren't going to be like, oh, Tope runs. Actually, they might do. I take that back. They may do. But short story, yeah, make it very clear that it's a Gen Z that runs the thing, because then it doesn't come across inauthentic. It's like, oh, Jay, 32 years old, is trying to talk in whatever. Do you know what I mean? They'll just be like, Jay, you weirdo. I do use a lot of slang, but it's not necessarily what they use. But yeah, so that's that side of things. And there was other parts of that question that I feel like I've missed.
I suppose in general, yeah, should you, if you're a branding company, also should you think about Gen Z, how you should think about Gen Z?
Yeah, I think you definitely should be thinking about Gen Z, because as I said, your current consumers will die. But I think the challenge is, so what you don't want to do is have you want social media that appeals, because I know the big challenge for most brands is going, okay, cool, we have Gen Z, millennials, and you're telling us to communicate with them all in different ways. It's confusing. But one thing you'll find is that you will have a specific lump of that demographic will be on one specific platform. So if you want to be engaging with your Gen X consumers, they're probably most likely going to be on Facebook. They're probably most likely going to be on potentially Instagram and even Twitter. If you're wanting to engaging with Gen Z, you're probably going to be leaning more towards Instagram and TikTok. So you could probably choose specific platforms. They will still have the same brand identity across the board, but you will have different pockets of how you engage with them, if that makes sense. So you could use different platforms to talk to them in different ways, which means you would potentially need a different person to look after each one. But really, pulling it all back to what's important, you need to go, what's our target? What do we want to do? If we want to engage with Gen X, let's just focus on Gen X. Don't just engage with Gen Z because you think out of panic that's what you should do. But if you think Gen Z are going to be your consumers in the next few years and you need their money, engage with them now, but do it in a way that's authentic on a platform that's authentic to them.
I think that was a great answer. And actually, jumping on that answer, there is another question. How do you market to an entire diverse generation without essentializing and stereotyping incorrectly? Talking about authenticity and everything else. How do you not generalize?
Yeah, good. This goes back to my point I made earlier. So there's two answers to this. One way is to, again, research. But with Gen Z, one thing, if you're coming to Gen Z and you're saying, okay, what we care about is Black Lives Matter and gender equality, these are the two things we're going to get behind. We understand that we understand that there's a whole bunch of issues that we could be addressing, but to make sure that we address these ones properly, we're choosing these two and we're going to be addressing them over the next 10 years. And then as a brand, you can then get behind those causes and create a strategy. And that's a great way, not just for Gen Z, but for all demographics, for them to see that you are over the next few years going to be sticking to one course and that's what you care about. So that's one side of that answer. And then the other side of that answer is trying to understand, okay, trying to reconcile with yourselves that you are going to miss some people. You're not gonna hit the nail on the head. Gen Z is an extremely diverse generation, but what you need to do is boil it down to what are the key things from Gen Z that they would want to see from our brand. What do they want to see from our brand? Because because realistically, if you're a luxury handbag brand that costs $2,500 per bag, you're not going to be appealing to the entire demographic of Gen Z. So you need to find your demographic that you're appealing to, a diverse demographic. So make sure it's a diverse mix. And then in them, ask what they would want to see from you. And then you just mitigate the risk of making mistakes because you've actually asked them. And then this is a beautiful thing. I'm still trying to get a brand to do this. Nobody will do it. It's like almost like I'm talking waffle when I ask them to do it. The best thing for you to do is to publish the research that you've done. I know, risky. Imagine you told people, hey, we did research because we wanted to understand how to engage with you better. And here is the research. This is the research we did. Maybe not showing the qualitative and quantitative responses, but this is the research we did. And this is the reason why we're only focusing on these two causes, or the reason why we're doing social media the way we're doing it is because we asked you. And then it takes away the risk of them going, screw you, you don't know what you're talking about, you're talking waffle, blah, 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 blah. Because you go, actually, here's the research that we did. The problem is most brands can't do that because they don't do research. But if you do research, then you can do that.
Love it, love it, love it. And yeah, definitely sharing what you learned and engaging people and everything avoids big mistakes to happen when you prepare something in the dark for half a year and it's like ta-da, and no one cares about what you worked on. There is a great question from Lucy about how to engage people. Does testimonial for discount is considered bribe by Gen Z, offering discounts for honest testimonials? I would actually expand this question. What do Gen Z want in exchange for a testimonial or for research, or how to incentivize Gen Z to interact with you? What are the good
question,
and bad ways
Lucy?
to do that?
Good question. I saw you ask that earlier, and actually I was going to be like, ask Lucy's question. It's a great question. It's not considered a bribe, no. The problem is with discounts is, so firstly, pay them. Secondly, it's not just testimonials, but if you want to do research with Gen Z, pay them, please, because we pay our community really, really well. If I'm being honest, we pay about 10 times more than our closest competitor. And I would argue, if anyone proves me wrong, then they prove me wrong. But I would argue we pay Gen Z probably the most I've known of any research company. And the reason why we do that is because then I get the best research out of them. If I pay you well, you just do a great job. That's just the honest truth of it. It's just human way human beings think. Gen Z, we all remember being broke. We all remember being like 21 years old and just wanting money. They just want to make money. They want to get paid so they can buy things. So if you pay them, they'll give you insights. That's just the way the game is. From a testimonial perspective, the one thing I've seen that Gen Z hate the most is when they check out of a thing and then they go, oh, give us your feedback and we'll give you 10% off next time. And that's so annoying because then they're just like, bro, you let me check out now. And now you're going to tell me you give me 10% off next time. Waste, man. If you can say to them, actually, before you check out, if you're willing to give a testimonial, we will give you 20% now, yada, yada, yada. I don't know how you'd work that on your website, but if you can do that, so prior to the fact they get the discount before they complete the thing, I guarantee you your testimonials will go through the roof. That's just an idea I came up with now, by the way. So you can quote me on that and tell your boss that, or if you are the boss, then I came up with the idea. So remind yourself. And also if your boss asks, I came up with the idea. But I think that's a great way you can just hack that a little bit. Just be like, hey, we will give you this discount right now. if you give a testimonial straight after. I don't know how you'd figure it out on your website, but there must be a way to do it. Ask me afterwards and I'll come up with an idea.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because I think I totally agree with you. Like giving something up front is much more genuine way to do it. But doesn't it mean that the person hasn't used the product yet, therefore the testimonial won't be genuine? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so good question. So what you could do, I don't know how you'd work it actually on the platform. So they say, for example, it was once it's delivered, so basically you've got the discount, you've paid for it, you've got the I'm working this out in real time, guys. You're seeing me work this out in real time. So I've paid £100 for the product gets delivered. Once I then get a referral, you then send me £20 back. Do you know what I mean? Because then it works, because it's kind of like, it's giving me the incentive to want to give a referral. It's giving me incentive to want to use the product. And what the key of all of it is, we want actual brutally honest testimonials. So be honest in your testimonial. So you're like, actually, you know what? I bought the product, I've used it, and I think it's trash. Give me my £20. Or I bought the product and I use it, and actually I think it's amazing. And then actually you will then be building a community of people that you will have data on them, because they would have engaged with you in a going beyond the actual sale themselves. But secondly, you've actually created brand love and brand equity, which is something I haven't spoken about today, actually I should have spoken about, so apologies, is guys, everything you're doing, think in long-term strategies. I know it's hard because everybody wants to talk quarter to quarter. Ignore them, tell them to shut up. Quarter to quarter is wonderful, but it's not going to build longevity for your brand. And when I said your consumers are going to die, they are going to die. And you need to build longevity with this current demographic. So you need to be planning 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And if you plan like that, I promise you, your long-term strategy will win. And something I always say to my team is, if we stay consistent over an extended period of time, when everybody else dies, we'll still be here.
This is brilliant advice. Loving it, Jay. Thank you so much for sharing. Daniel is asking, have you seen any insights that suggest a growth in digital burnout and online anxiety with Gen Z? What are your plans if Gen Z start to log off?
Ooh, good question. So on my side of things, it doesn't really affect us because they're housed on our platform, which is what I was saying earlier, which is really, really, I thank God for that we haven't built it on like an Instagram. I always get nervous when people build their platforms on top of social media platforms. I'm like, ooh, if that disappears, you're struggling. So we actually have our own community on the side of things. So our plans wouldn't change because we focus actually engaging our community outside of briefs as well. So we add loads of value. So when I was talking about adding value earlier, we add value to them in loads of different ways. So some of them are going to be pissed off with us because they're like, yo, I joined the community and I haven't been paid yet. And I'm like, cool, there's only a certain number of brands I work with. I've got to like bring them in to give you the money, blah, blah, blah. So there's that whole side of things. Yes, there is digital burnout. When you download our report, plug, you will see in the media consumption section, it talks about the idea of them logging off and actually taking lots of time off social media. I personally got rid of my Instagram like a year ago, and that actually came from a conversation with one of our community. And she basically kept asking me why I have social media. Every time I answered, she's like, but why? And I was like, she's like, but why? And I was like, oh shit. So I got to the crux of it. Actually, I was using it to be like, look what I'm doing. And when it turned out, I actually didn't give a crap if people knew what I'm doing. So I got rid of it. So there is a massive trend of them coming off social media, but the biggest trend we're seeing is that they have what's called a Finsta. They have a personal, like private Finsta, which is like, this is for me, this is for my people, them. So this is for me and my people. I only have like 250 people on there, family, friends, actual close people. And then I have my public one, which they actually don't post on, which is hilarious. Or they post and then delete, and then they post and then they delete. My son's 15, he does this all the time. He used to drive me nuts. I'm like, bro, why are you posting and then deleting? What's the point? But for them, it's that public persona isn't something that they want to be. They understand that social media is forever, so they don't want it to be out there forever. So they're more than happy to delete. With millennials, remember back in the day with millennials, we'd go to a house party and then we'd post like 300 photos after the house party. But like, look what I did tonight, mad intense. But with Gen Z, they've seen us do that, and then we lose control of our data. And then they're like, nah, I'm not doing that. So they will post one time, delete it. They'll post stuff into the private chat where social media platforms can't get hold of, and that's what they care about. The interesting one that I think everybody should be getting excited about is dark social, which is like WhatsApp, DMs, blah, 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 blah. That's the stuff you should be getting rid of. If your brand or company or whatever can make it into dark social, so make it into the WhatsApp group chat, you've made it. You've gone clear. Like you've actually gone clear, like your entire life is made. Because if me putting something into the WhatsApp group chat is me vouching for that brand or vouching for that company. So if I say, oh, you know what, this is my family group chat, these are the trainers I love because I think they're sick. Me putting it in there is me putting my my all behind that brand. So whether it's the Snapchat DM or whatever it may be. So there is burnout. They are going to be coming off social media. And that's the good thing about that is you need to then develop your own community and take it off the platform. I always say this to people and people look at me like I'm crazy. Newsletters, podcasts, take them off the platform. Have all of the data so you can connect directly with your consumer. And a brand that's doing this really, really well, sorry, I'm rambling. Brand that's doing really, really well is Nike. Nike are killing this. You notice Nike recently took out all of their trainers from Foot Locker. So now Foot Locker can't sell their trainers anymore. And Nike are moving to a D2C model. I wonder why. Because they want the data. They want the data.
Can I just ask a bit more questions about your answer? Because I go, maybe I'm getting old. With the whole dark social and chats, can you expand a bit more on that? So the idea is to make sure that people organically recommend your product. Is that what you trying to say?
Exactly right. Yeah.
And how?
So dark social in short is social media that can't be tracked by the algorithms that are. I talk about the algorithms like they're people. They're just algorithms. You can't be tracked by the algorithms. So like Instagram, a public profile on Instagram isn't dark social because everybody can see it. Dark social is the WhatsApp group chat or places where these things can't be tracked. So if you can make it, if your brand or product can make it into that, and there's great ways you can do that. We did some work with Doritos that I can't actually go into because it's like we're NDA'd up to the eyeballs and stuff. But we did some great work with them about how they can create a campaign that encourages Gen Z to then share on dark social. And that's the place where you really want to get to. So you can make it into those fringe communities, those fringe Reddit groups and fringe networks, Discord, whatever it may be. If you can make it into those private conversations, that's the stuff that's important. Because that's the stuff that's actually going to put money in your back pocket, for honest.
Wow, that is fascinating. I think I need to learn a lot more about that whole community of, I thought you're talking about dark internet and all sorts of things there, but that's an interesting one to engage with as well. Who knows? Catherine is asking a bit more technical questions in terms of posting on social media. How many posts a week or a month to instruct the Gen Z generation by platforms?
If you listen to Gary Vee, because he's mad intense, if you listen to Gary Vee, he will say 3 times a day on TikTok. I don't know if that's plausible for any human being that isn't Gary Vee, but I think whatever the frequency is, so on LinkedIn, my personal LinkedIn, I post once a day, and I just stay to that consistency because I know I can't do it for more than that. On our podcast, so we have an Imagen This podcast, plug. You can check out our podcast on our website or whatever. We only do it once a month because I just know that's my capacity and I can only record once a month. We will increase it over time. So I think it's whatever your brand is, you need to find the consistency that actually is healthy and plausible for you as a brand. And I think there's a common misconception that you need to just do things so everybody else is doing it, which is bollocks. Just do whatever's healthy for your brand, for who you are, and which actually won't burn you out. I'd recommend if you can once a day. But if you can't do that and it's 3 times a week, just stay consistent to that. Just so they know, it's like your favorite TV show. I get super annoyed when the Americans do those like mid-season breaks. And I'm like, bro, I don't care if you need a mid-season. You filmed the entire thing, just put the entire thing out, bro. Don't have a mid-season break. I like to have the consistency of knowing, the next episode of Walking Dead is coming out this next week. And it's the same with social media. They just like to know that, they post on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I know when to engage with the content. And it just means that they're not guessing, oh, wow, you suddenly posted. I'm not going to see you again for 2 weeks. It's actually, I know when you're consistently posting. And just to caveat all of this, guys, these are my thoughts inside of my head. This isn't like gospel. It's just, I think they're good ideas. So take all of this with a pinch of salt, like try and test your own ideas. A/B test it, as we like to say. A/B test it.
Wonderful. Thank you for insights, Jay. And Fakunda asked, I might have mispronounced the name, asking, I saw that you have Pepsi as a client. Could you comment on the fight between Pepsi and Coca-Cola over the years? And how does it work now for Gen Z?
Pepsi themselves aren't a client. Our client is Doritos. So PepsiCo are a client. So they own Doritos and Pepsi and Walkers and so on and so on. So I can't comment on the Pepsi Coca-Cola. I definitely wouldn't as well because I don't want to get sued. But from how they're engaging with Gen Z, PepsiCo, Amazon Prime Video, who else is doing this really, really well? Sky TV, ITV, any client you see on our website, Red Bull, so on and so on. What they're doing really, really well is they're engaging with Gen Z over an extended period of time. One thing that always impresses me when a brand is willing to put money behind something and say, over this next 2-year period, 3-year period, we're going to speak to Gen Z every single month. And we're not only going to hear what they have to say, we're actually going to implement what they have to say. And that's one thing I love about PepsiCo. They listen to what our community says, and then they create campaigns or they respond to it. Like, say, for example, our community, Doritos sent a campaign to our community fed back on it. PepsiCo listened and they pulled the campaign. Those kind of that kind of instantaneous reaction and instantaneous action, instantaneous insight is extremely helpful to brands like that. And I think I'm always impressed when brands do that, because it's scary to listen to people. And I like when brands listen to people, because it shows me you're not an absolute ignoramus.
Another great question. Are marketing agencies actually helpful for brands? Having seen from the inside, often a lot of cheating using bots and pods to boost client engagement or working their strategies from assumptions instead of research. Are they still actually helpful, those marketing agencies?
Yeah, they can be if you find the right one. So a lot of my friends own marketing agencies. I'm not going to try and trash them because they'll just kill me. I would always be nervous at an agency that doesn't like to do research. If an agency comes to you like, oh no, we have experts internally we have Gen Z people internally and I'm like, cool, but that's their viewpoint on the entire world. So unless you have, I don't know, billions of Gen Z that work for your company, you haven't got you know what I mean? Like, you haven't got not even billions, that's an over exaggeration. But if you haven't got an eclectic mix of Gen Z within your thing, and I'm talking more than 5, 10, 15, 20 people, you need a lot of people to get data. You need to get rich data. Oh, the sun's disappearing. No, you need to get rich data from people to be able to make informed decisions. And I've come across a lot of marketing agencies that spout this thing of, we're the experts, don't worry, we'll look after you. We know what we're doing. We understand this generation. We're a youth agency. Look, we've got cool logos on our website, and we've got cool photos of really cool people that work internally. And we wear trainers and hoodies. And I'm like, cool. So do you understand the demographic or not? And are you going to ask them questions or not? I'm always nervous of a marketing agency that doesn't ask questions and isn't open to being humbled and isn't open to research, because those marketing agencies are scam artists, if I'm being honest, and they're blagging it. Because we're all making up, let's be honest, we're all making up, and without actual insight, you just don't know if you're doing something right or wrong. So if a marketing agency isn't open to being humbled, asking the hard questions, and listening to responses from people that aren't within their four walls, then avoid them like the plague. And that's a large percentage of marketing agencies, so I apologize. And the same with research companies. If research companies are like, yes, and our methodology is the only way you can do it, then they're lying, and don't agree with them. We partner with loads of different research companies because we don't own the entire, do you know what I mean? We're not like the entire thing. Yeah, anyway. Good question, by the way, Lucy. You're killing it with the questions.
Marianne is asking one more question based on your research. You mentioned that Gen Zs are interested in their finance. Does that include investment?
Yeah, definitely includes investment. There was one slide back there about cryptocurrency, which I didn't actually mention. So many of them are interested in investing for sure. And great platforms like Robinhood and so on and so on have made it easier for them to do this. I think they're interested, they just want more information because they don't feel like they fully understand it. Bro, I'm 32 and I don't fully understand it. Like, people will tell me, like, do you want to invest in this? I'm like, I don't know, bro. I'm just trying to build my business. I don't know. And I think if you can be, it's like I said earlier, if you can be the platform that's on social media being like, hey, here's a whole bunch of free information that will help you to make money. And if you happen to want to invest with us, then that's great. But here's a whole bunch of free information that could be super helpful to you regardless.
There was a question around the difference between Western and Asian market, and I would say any global country, cultures, difference in cultures in the context of Gen Z. Do you see any differences?
Yeah, massively, huge. So that you have the common characteristics, activists, co-creators, and digital natives. Those ones I mentioned earlier, they're common characteristics across what we've seen across the board. But definitely there's so many nuances, even between like different Asian countries, even between different European countries. So the work we do with Prime Video and with Red Bull, we do across Europe. So they will ask pretty much identical questions across Europe, and the answers we get are just so vastly different. So like a young black girl in Paris or a young black girl in Croydon are going to have two completely different answers. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a beautiful thing about research, because you get to find those things out. It's too nuanced for me to try and answer that entire, like there are copious amounts of differences. There are a lot of similarities because of the generation that they've grown up in, but there's obviously loads of different, and then it differs per brand. because what they want to see from Nike will be different to what they want to see from Adidas. So
I think it's just, as always, humans are different. One human will be definitely different from another human. So no matter how much you try to generalize, still there will be people who will be different from all the research, but it's good to have at least some sort of similar narrative that you can use when you think about a certain population or a particular brand or campaign. So that is very, very helpful. Cheesy is asking a question. We spoke about this a little bit, but as a musician, if my target audience is from 12 to 30 years old, hard one, would it be better to focus on either Gen Z or millennials, or could I focus on both? And if so, how can I market to both without alienating either group of by my brand?
And I see that Natasha provided a great answer. Thanks, Natasha. The idea, yeah, you can market to them on different platforms, and I think the large percentage of that demographic you've mentioned there, so 12 to 26, 27 are Gen Z. So it's just the final 3 years that are millennials. So yeah, you can focus on, you can target both on different social media platforms, but always just remember the largest part of that demographic is going to be Gen Z. And you're then targeting the younger side of millennials. Are you? Yeah, the younger side. I had to think then. I was like, wait, is that younger side of millennials? So you're targeting like my sister's age group, who are the younger side of millennials. So they're quite similar to Gen Z in a lot of aspects anyway, because they're only a couple of years ahead of them. So yeah, better in mind. But yeah, good question.
If you were building a Gen Z branding studio right now, what core pillars would you build it around?
I don't know. It sounds like a broken thing, but it's the three I mentioned at the start. Transparency. So so if I was going to have, I can't think of 4 pillars, but if I was, I can't remember if you said 4. It kind of makes you a lopsided building if I give you 3, but it is what it is. The game's the game. Transparency, bravery, and conversation. I would say those are the 3 that I would focus on, because those are the 3 things that we're seeing across our demographics, across our community, that's what they're expecting from brands. So that's what they're going to be expecting from a brand studio. And if you guys are then going to be informing brands about what they should be doing, if you're saying these are our 3 pillars, plus the 4th, because your house will fall down if you don't have your 4th. But these are our 3 pillars. So this is what we're doing. And the reason why we will be sick at doing your brand type stuff is because internally we already follow this and have these as our core pillars. I think that'd be really, really cool.
Is Gen Z into CBD?
Yeah, they are. I think what I want to just dispel quickly, if human beings are into it, Gen Z are going to be into it. And I think the sometimes, because it happened when millennials came along, everybody was like, whoa, millennials, they're crazy. Like, what do they want? Like, a lot of the things are very, very similar. It's just a lot of the message is very, very similar, but the method of how you communicate it is just different a lot of the time. So what you would say to millennials is not too dissimilar. So the CBD you would sell to millennials is it would be the exact same CBD you'd want to sell to them. I don't think it's like because they're a different demographic, they wouldn't be interested in it. And I think that applies to any brand. Oh, wow, that person got run over in the car. Sorry, ADHD kicking in. Haha. The generations are similar. There are so many things that cross over that I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. So short answer, yes, they're interested in CBD or the same way that millennials are and other demographics, for sure.
Wonderful. And that sparked a question in Natasha. She's asking, are Gen Z believers of psychedelic therapy?
I don't know. Natasha, that's like, I'm so sorry, Natasha. Literally, that's like the first time I've ever been asked that. Psychedelic therapy. What have we done anything around psychedelic therapy? I know they're interested in therapy, 100%, like massively. Psychedelic therapy. I don't want to lie and pretend that I know about it when I don't. I know they're interested in therapy because they're interested in mental health. And that's super important to them. So I think if it's packaged in a way that, again, adds value and they can see it adding value to their lives, I don't see why not. But complete transparency, I've never asked any of our community about psychedelic therapy. There'll probably be a research paper out there about it, I guess.
Can I speak for a sec?
Yeah, shoot.
I haven't really found a lot of content on it, which is why I asked. But like, my theory is that millennials rank lower on openness, at least in my community. So they would require more psychedelic therapy or like exposure to psychedelics. But Gen Z, on the other hand, is high on the openness. So they might not, but it would be interesting to hear. And
no, I know that. I know that in general, I don't want to call it drug culture because that sounds terrible, but in general, like in a safe space, they are open to doing stuff. And I think because it's been like, you can watch like, even TV shows like Euphoria. It's a prime example of how this generation. And the thing is, I was with some members of our community the other day, and they were like, "Euphoria is the epitome of our generation. Like it's the TV show of our generation." And I was like, "Right, like I didn't expect." Like it was such a. But for them, it was like actually, this is obviously bar the fact that they in the TV show they're always wearing like the best clothes to school or whatever. I think they're open to it because. Gen Z, they remind me of like the 1970s young people, the way they are about love and about freedom and about rights and so on and so on. It's that kind, they're that kind of demographic. So I think that's probably because they're being raised by those people. But I definitely would think they would be open to it for sure. But again, like you said, they are super open to therapy. So I don't know, Natasha. Sorry. I know a lot of things that things I don't know.
Thank you. I'm going to investigate this question further.
Let me know. I'd love to hear more.
Love it. And on this bright note about what should we expect from psychedelics and where can we find more insights apart from Euphoria? And I love that comment because I definitely think it's a good way to understand a bit more about the whole generation by what they actually watch, what they read, what they can relate to. I think there are lots of small things you can pick up from there. And I absolutely loved your comment about the fact that what humans are generally interested in, then Gen Z will be interested in. I think that's such a great way to look at things, whether we talk about flexible working, whether we talk about like whatever other things that kind of make sense in general for humans. And look at that, Gen Z really believe in that as well. So they're just, I suppose, first ones to adopt things that maybe other more conservative people might wait a bit longer on.
Yeah, they're definitely tilted towards being early adopters. That's what I would say. And the reason for that is they're so used to technology updating that for them it's like, well, obviously that not all. I'm not talking about the entire demographic, but from what I've seen from our research is that definitely they're more likely to be early adopters because they're just so used to technology and things updating and things changing and stuff. Appreciate you guys. Ekaterina, thank you for all of the questions. You're a phenomenal human being and I appreciate you. Thank you to FLA. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Jay, so much. I learned so much today that I just have to now digest all this information and definitely look forward to reading the report. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Speak to you later.